All right, folks, let's talk about D&D and power fantasy. Have you ever, like dreamed of creating a character that's so strong they could just like bend the whole battlefield to their will? Radiating this aura of power that makes even the toughest monsters think twice.
Oh yeah, I definitely have. There's something so satisfying about making a character that not only survives like the hardest encounters, but also gets to decide how the fight goes. Like turning the whole battle around with one single perfect move.
Yeah. That's totally the kind of character we're diving into today. We're going to be talking about building the best Paladin build for the new One D&D rules coming out. And we're using this awesome article from LitRPG Reads by Kathy Stone to guide us.
It's like a super deep dive into making the Paladin the best it can be in the new rules. It goes way beyond just being like a holy warrior and makes them a true powerhouse on the battlefield.
The article really stresses how important your early choices are.
Yeah.
Especially like what race you pick. It's not just about looks anymore. It's about picking a race that can make your Paladin crazy strong right from the start.
Right. One D&D seems to be all about making race choices really matter. Each race has unique powers and traits that can totally change how your character plays and what they're good at.
The article says the top 3 choices for this epic Paladin build are Aasimar, Dragonborn, and Half-Elf. I'm kind of leaning towards Dragonborn myself. Maybe because I had this one amazing campaign where a Dragonborn Paladin totally saved our party from a ton of goblins.
Oh, wow. I'd love to hear about that. But first, maybe we could talk about why these 3 races are so good for Paladins.
Okay, you got me. Let's start with Aasimar. What makes them so special for this build?
Well, Aasimar come from like a celestial heritage, which is perfect for Paladins. With all their divine abilities, their racial trait, Healing Hands, makes their healing even better, and they even know some spells, like radiant spells, naturally. Just imagine a Paladin using divine light to heal their friends and then blasting their enemies with radiant energy at the same time.
Whoa, it's like they're a walking holy power source.
Right.
Both protecting and destroying with holy energy.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got to hear about the Dragonborn. I'm already on board, but tell me what the article says.
Okay, well, besides just how cool it is to be a dragon person with divine power, Dragonborn bring a lot to the table mechanically. Their breath weapon is like this awesome area attack, so they're amazing for crowd control. Plus, they have natural resistance to some damage types, so they can take even more hits on the front line.
Okay, you're totally speaking my language here, but I'm loving it. So we've got the Radiant Aasimar and the Fiery Dragonborn. What about the Half-Elf? What do they bring to the party?
Half-elves are all about being adaptable and well-rounded. They get to increase 2 ability scores when you create them, and one of those can go to their charisma, which is super important for Paladins. Plus, they have dark vision for those creepy dungeons, and Fey ancestry, which helps them resist charms, and they can't be put to sleep by magic.
So it sounds like the Aasimar and the Dragonborn have specific strengths,
Right.
but the Half-Elf is more like a jack of all trades. They can handle a lot of different situations. I guess choosing your race is just the first step in a long line of big decisions for this build.
Oh, definitely. And once you've picked your race, you get to tackle the hardest part of character creation, figuring out your ability scores.
Ugh, yeah. The classic struggle of where to put those points. Even after years of playing D&D, I still stress over that character sheet. So what does the article recommend for our epic Paladin?
Okay, so the article says the 3 most important abilities for Paladins are Strength, Charisma, and Constitution Strength is kind of obvious. You need it to hit hard in melee. Charisma powers your spells and all those cool Paladin abilities like Divine Smite.
Right, it's not just about being like charming. It's about using your force of personality to channel divine power.
Exactly. And then there's Constitution. It's all about how tough you are, how much damage you can take and keep fighting. You want your Paladin to be a force to be reckoned with, not someone who falls apart after a few hits.
Strength for hitting power, charisma for divine power, and constitution for toughness. Makes sense. But I'm thinking we shouldn't just ignore dexterity, wisdom, and intelligence. Even an epic paladin needs to be a little well-rounded, right?
You're totally right. Those 3 are still useful. Dexterity helps your armor class and initiative, so you can dodge attacks and go first in combat. A bit of wisdom can be good for perception checks, to spot traps and hidden enemies.
Okay, so it's all about balance. You want to make your core strength super high, but still have enough of the other abilities so you're not completely weak. So we've got our race and our ability scores. What's the next big decision on our quest for paladin greatness?
Now it's time to choose your sacred oath. This is where you really get to decide what kind of paladin you want to be and get some unique abilities.
Oh yeah, I love this part. It's like picking your character's moral code and where their power comes from. The article talks about 2 oaths, specifically vengeance and conquest. They both sound super powerful, but in totally different ways.
It's like a choice between going all in on single target damage with Vengeance or becoming this aura of fear and control with Conquest. Each path has a totally different playstyle and opens up different tactics in combat.
So let's start with Vengeance. What kind of paladin picks this oath, and what makes them so scary?
The Oath of Vengeance is for paladins who are all about divine retribution. They're like these relentless hunters, totally dedicated to taking down anyone who's done something really bad. Mechanically, they get abilities that make their single target damage crazy high, so they can focus all their wrath on one enemy and just destroy them.
I can see how a Vengeance Paladin would be terrifying to fight against, especially for like a big boss monster or an enemy that tries to pick off weaker party members. They just lock onto their target and unleash pure holy fury.
Exactly. Their Vow of Enmity ability lets them mark an enemy and get advantage on attacks against them, so they're guaranteed to hit hard and take them down.
Oh, that's intense. Now let's talk about Conquest. What kind of personality would be drawn to this oath, and how does it actually work?
The Oath of Conquest is for paladins who want to control the whole battlefield. They're not just happy punishing evil, they want to dominate it. To break their enemy's will and make them power, they get abilities that let them manipulate the battlefield and make enemies afraid, so they can control how the fight goes and weaken their opponents before they even strike.
So while the Vengeance Paladin's like a laser beam of holy wrath, the Conquest Paladin is more like a puppet master. They're controlling the whole fight and making their enemies panic.
Exactly. Their Conquering Presence ability lets them unleash this wave of fear that can totally cripple their foes. It's all about sowing chaos and making your enemies vulnerable while you stay strong and in control.
Okay, so we've got our race, our ability scores, and our sacred oath. We're starting to see this epic paladin take shape. But how do we go from just powerful to truly epic? The article mentions these things called feats. And I'm curious.
Feats are like the fun part of character building in One D&D. They're these extra abilities or upgrades that let you customize your paladin even more, so you can really tailor your character to your playstyle.
The article says the Great Weapon Master and Sentinel are must-haves for our epic paladin. So let's break those down and see how they make our paladin even better.
Okay, so Great Weapon Master is all about dealing the most damage possible. It's perfect for that power fantasy of hitting your enemies so hard they can barely stand. The feat gives you an extra attack after you crit or kill an enemy, so you can keep the pressure on and maybe even take out multiple enemies in one turn.
That sounds brutal. I can see this being amazing for a paladin with a huge two-handed weapon, just smashing through enemies with unstoppable force.
Right. Now, Sentinel is more about controlling the fight and protecting your allies. It lets you stop enemies in their tracks so they can't get to your weaker party members. And it also lets you punish anyone who tries to attack someone other than you. So you basically become the center of attention for the enemy.
So Great Weapon Master is for maxing out your damage, and Sentinel is for controlling the battlefield and keeping your friends safe. They both sound crazy strong in different ways. It's almost like choosing between being this unstoppable force or an unbreakable wall that protects the innocent.
And these choices become even more interesting when you pick your fighting style. The article suggests two that work really well with this paladin build: defense and dueling.
Okay, let's talk about those. I know what fighting styles are, but I've never been totally sure what each one does.
Defense is pretty simple. It gives you a bonus to your armor class, so it's harder for enemies to hit you. It's perfect for paladins who want to be the tank. Yeah, they're the one who stands on the front line and takes all the hits. You basically become a walking fortress.
So if I want my paladin to be the unkillable one, the one who stands there and takes all the enemy's attacks, defense is the way to go.
Yep. Now, dueling is for those who want to be more aggressive. You're focused on hitting hard and taking out one enemy at a time. It gives you bonus damage when you're using only one weapon, so your attacks hit even harder.
So if I want my paladin to be a whirlwind of holy vengeance, just cutting down enemies one by one, dueling would be the better choice. It seems like every decision we make adds another layer to this paladin's identity, making them even more unique and powerful.
For sure. And we haven't even talked about their equipment yet. Picking the right weapons and armor can make your paladin even stronger and really solidify their role in the party.
Okay, let's get our paladin geared up.
Yeah.
What kind of holy weapons are we talking about? What does the article recommend for an epic paladin?
So we've talked about feats and fighting styles, but what about the weapons and armor? What does the article say about making this paladin build really awesome?
Yeah, I'm curious, what kind of gear do they recommend? Like, what weapons would make this paladin build really shine?
Well, they say there are a bunch of options for weapons depending on how you want to play. For paladins who want that classic image of a two-handed weapon, great swords and mauls are great choices. They hit super hard, and with feats like Great Weapon Master, you can just destroy groups of enemies.
I can just see it. You know, a paladin charging in with their greatsword glowing with holy light. Every swing sends enemies flying. It's a classic look for a reason. But what about paladins who are more tactical, like maybe focusing on hitting from a distance and being precise?
The article suggests halberds and polearms for that kind of paladin. They give you more reach, so you can control a bigger area and keep enemies away. They're especially good with the sentinel feat, so you can lock down enemies and protect your team.
And obviously no paladin is complete without a shield, right? It's not just about the extra defense, it's a symbol of how they protect the innocent.
Totally. A shield is like a paladin's signature item. It shows that they're protectors, and it helps them stand strong against any attack.
Okay, now let's talk armor. I'm guessing plate armor is the best choice for our epic paladin.
You got it. Plate armor gives you the best protection. It basically turns your paladin into an unstoppable tank. It's perfect if you want to be the one who stands on the front line and takes all the hits.
It's like wearing holy steel. You just radiate invincibility. I guess all that protection has to have some downsides, right?
There's always a trade-off. Plate armor is super protective, but it's also heavy and can slow you down. If you want to be quicker and more agile instead of just being tough, the article suggests chainmail. It's a good mix of defense and mobility, so you can move around the battlefield easier.
So you have to decide if you want to be an unmovable wall or if you want to be quick and able to react to anything. It sounds like building an epic paladin is about more than just picking the strongest gear. You have to think about how each choice affects your playstyle.
Exactly. And don't forget about paladin magic. Their spells are a big part of what makes them strong. They can heal their friends, boost their defenses, and unleash holy wrath on their enemies. The article mentions some spells that are really good for this epic build.
Oh, tell me more. What spells can really take our paladin to the next level?
One classic spell that's always good is Bless. It's simple, but it's really effective. It gives your whole party a bonus to hit with attacks and make saving throws. It's great if you like the paladin's role as a protector and leader. It makes sure your team has an advantage in fights.
Bless is like a gift from the gods. It helps your whole team fight better and be tougher. It's popular for a reason, but what about when you need to really punish your enemies? Are there any spells that can make them terrified?
Oh yeah. The article recommends Wrathful Smite for that. It's a strong spell that not only deals radiant damage, but can also make your target run away in fear.
I can just imagine it. A paladin with their eyes full of righteous anger, smiting their enemy with holy power and making them run for their lives. It's the perfect mix of damage and controlling the fight. Are there any other cool spells that the article talks about?
One that really shows how epic this paladin build can be is Find Steed. It lets the paladin summon a loyal mount. It's a creature of pure, divine energy that fights alongside them.
That's so cool. I'm picturing a paladin riding into battle on an awesome steed, maybe a shining warhorse with wings of light, or a powerful griffin infused with holy power.
Yeah.
It's not just about having a mount to ride, it's about how awesome it looks. You know, charging into battle with a divine companion.
Yeah, it makes the paladin feel even more powerful on the battlefield.
So we've talked about race ability scores, sacred oaths, feats, fighting styles, equipment, and even spells. We've really gone deep on this epic paladin build. But there's one last thing the article mentions that I want to talk about. Backgrounds.
Yeah, people don't always think about backgrounds, but they can make your characters so much more interesting.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out who your paladin was before they became an adventurer, what experiences shaped them, and what skills they have outside of fighting.
I always thought backgrounds were mostly for role-playing, but the article makes it seem like they have mechanical benefits too.
Oh, for sure. Backgrounds give you extra skills, proficiencies, and even equipment that can be super useful in your campaign. The article suggests a few backgrounds that are perfect for our epic paladin build.
Okay, I'm all ears. What backgrounds can really make our paladin's story and abilities even better?
If your paladin comes from a noble family or a position of power, the noble background is a great choice. It gives you skills like history and persuasion, so they're natural leaders and diplomats. They can use their influence and social status to find information, convince people, and rally others to their cause.
So they're more than just a fighter. They're a leader who can inspire people and handle all those complicated social situations. What other backgrounds work well for this epic paladin?
The soldier background is perfect if your paladin has a military background, like maybe they served in an army or were a knight. It gives you proficiencies in athletics and intimidation, which makes sense because they're trained and experienced in combat and leadership. They're disciplined warriors who can inspire their allies and scare their enemies.
So they have that battle-hardened vibe, that aura of authority from years of training and fighting on the front lines. What's the last background the article recommends?
If your paladin is super devoted to their faith and has spent years studying religious stuff and serving in temples, the acolyte background is perfect. It gives them proficiencies in insight and religion, so they're insightful and understand their god and the forces of good and evil really well.
So the acolyte background is for paladins who get their strength and wisdom from their faith. They're not just warriors, but also scholars and spiritual guides.
Exactly. They're like beacons of hope and wisdom, guiding and supporting their allies while fighting against evil.
Wow, we've talked about so much today. It's amazing to see how every choice matters. From race and ability scores to feats, equipment, and even background, it all comes together to make a truly epic paladin build.
It's not just about having the best stats or making the most powerful character. It's about making choices that fit your paladin's personality, their backstory, and how they fit in the party.
It's about creating a character that's not just strong, but also memorable. Someone who stands out in battle and leaves their mark on the world.
Exactly. And that's what makes this paladin build so cool. It's like a starting point for so many possibilities. It lets players create a totally unique and awesome character that shows their vision of a true holy warrior.
Big thanks to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for the article that inspired this whole deep dive. It's given us so much to think about as we get ready for One D&D.
It's definitely got my creative gears turning.
If you're as excited about this epic paladin build as we are, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and your own unique takes on this powerful character. Until next time, keep those dice rolling, and may your adventures be legendary.